Hey, Daniel, again.
Hey, Ganeet, great to be here.
Daniel, let's talk about the farmers' protest that's happening in India. And last time this happened in India, there was a big support from Canada. It was big support from NDP. It was Jagmeet Singh, even Trudeau. There was big support. Why there is no support this time?
Yeah, it's one of the more interesting things that the farmers' protest has sort of fizzled internationally. And I think there's a few reasons. And I think the biggest one is there's actually real farmers' press protests going on in Europe right now and across North America. And when you see North American farmers' protests, it's usually related to things like agriculture. So often farmers protest the insane climate policies and such that make being a farmer way too expensive. Like in Canada, in France, the yellow vest protests were over fuel prices. These are things farmers protest: is fuel prices, water, irrigation, and all that. And those are often affected by the far left climate policies. Now you have an Indian farmer protest, which is not about farms or agriculture or water or tomatoes or anything that grows from the ground. It's about Khalistan. And it's a wedge issue. And these farmers aren't asking for like lower prices on fuel. They're asking for like it's sort of like a Dr. Evil type thing. I want a million, trillion, bajillion dollars. And if not, we're gonna, just honk our horns and we're gonna drive on the capital. And the entire point of these farmers' protests is usually to gin up kerfuffle to put political pressure on the Modi government. But it's not working because most of the people that their target audiences in the West are leftists who are now so invested in not backing farmers' protests because Jagmeet Singh wants to yell about the farmers' protests right now. Jagmeet Singh wants to, like, even more than he hates Loblaws, he hates India. And he wants to do this, but he can't, because if he goes to his base, they're going to be reflexively against it because it's farmers. And then if he does endorse it, everyone who sees him slamming farmers in Canada and America, in Europe, will immediately call him a hypocrite. So it is very interesting that, Jagmeet Singh wants to do it. Justin Trudeau will do it. He has no, like, again, Khalistan is one of the things he loves. He loves racism, trans, LGBTQ, Khalistan, like all the things. This is just another thing Justin Trudeau likes to do. And the fact that he can't do it also must be quite sad for him. But it's shown that the sort of farmer mystique, the farmer mask to Khalistan probably needs to move on. Because, listen, I don't think they really need the farmers. They never really cared about the farms. I remember the original round of farmers protests in Canada. It was just all Khalistani flags talking about Khalistan, and you're getting frustrated. Like, can someone just hold an ear of corn, please, so we can pretend this about farms or anything? Can someone do that? And they couldn't. So good news. It seems like we're done with the farmer brand Khalistani protests. I'm excited to see what they come up with next.
And do you think by not supporting this, they are kind of it's affecting the protest?
Yeah, because this entire thing is run off of like world pressure and attention. The reason why a lot of people back like a farmers' protest in Europe, for example, is because there's a lot of European citizens who feel like they're tied in with the policies the farmers are going for. So when the farmers say, hey, we want to lower these taxes on energy and fuel because they make our lives more expensive, and that means the food we sell to you is more expensive. Everyone eats food and needs to pay money for food. This is something that affects everyone. But when you make your protest about, hey, we want a gajillion dollars in subsidies and a Khalistan, well, the citizens of India who are like anywhere outside the Punjab region who like aren't Khalistani Sikh radicals, like, or like even like again, but even like a Sikh in New Delhi, like what do I get from this? Like we just what I get to pay double taxes so the farmers can get more money and then separate and we still fund them. Like where there's no like base support of like, oh, here's what we want on paper. It doesn't appeal to anyone in India who is not, a Khalistani.
I'm going to add to that. The demands of the farmers' protest in India right now is directly contradicting the WTO policies. So if India needs to be in the World Trade Organization as Canada would want, it is anti-WTO policy. So there's a big contradiction in what they're, because they want to be guaranteed 50% of profit on the crop that they grow. Like in India, you don't even need those wheat and rice anymore. And the biggest impact is nobody's talking about that part is in 20 years, the farmland of Punjab region will be done. Like, which I mean by done is it's basically become a cancer belt because they have been growing food with fertilizers. And the eastern region of India, which is Bengal or Bihar, which are, climate-wise best to grow wheat and rice, are not giving that share. So there's a big contradiction to that, and there's no long-term approach to that part. So there's a big politics in that as well.
Yeah, I mean, the whole thing is it's a construct to me, it's always been a constructed Khalistani narrative, and then they've latched on for something to put there. So they stamped farming on it. This policy is not you can tell farmers are not behind it. These farmers usually, again, deal with things that are like agriculturally based, like it's either water, energy, fuel, tractors, food, wheat. Like these are the issues that farmers care about, not Khalistan.
Trudeau said that they have credible allegations about Indian government behind killing of Hardeep Singh Major. Nothing has been done by the RCMP, so we don't have anything here. What do you think has been going on at the back end, and how do you tie it to the elections?
It is good that you can see there's a diplomatic back channel still between Canada and India. And I think it's another good sign that Justin Trudeau did not jump on the Khalistan farmers' protest to antagonize. It seems Justin Trudeau is fixated on like his grand international policy now is sort of, Palestinian appeasement. He's on the sort of political left, where that's where like the majority of his base is sort of, bracing for the, how anti-Israel can we be to stave off the NDP and this and that. And then I think, elections in India will sort of straighten everything out. Because you don't know if there's any sort of magical thinking within the Liberals where they think, oh, Modi isn't progressive enough, so there's no way he'll win an election in India because he doesn't have the same social values as the upper middle class of Toronto, Ottawa, and Montreal. Like, how could he win an Indian election without my friends in Montreal? That type of thinking that, when Modi wins maybe 80% of the, over 70% of the seats, we're talking about, is it over 400 seats he's going to get? That should restabilize things and let, sort of the West know, okay, this guy isn't going away anytime soon. We can't just ignore him and assume that, oh, okay, Congress will get back in and then everything will go back to the status quo, and, we'll have a climate agreement, and we'll have some, social justice agreements, and they'll do nothing on paper, but we'll all feel good. No, I don't think that's going to happen. I don't think Rahul Gandhi's going to pull a rabbit out of the hat in this one. So to me, it symbolizes that I think Canada kind of realizes that India is going to be there long term. And it's shown that this isn't the number one social issue for anyone really in Canada. Again, the left is a lot of people are far more focused on Israel-Palestine as foreign policy. Ukraine, the remnants of the culture will go out there. And then again, the Chinese foreign interference is a much, much bigger story for people who hate Trudeau than his India bungling. Although it's always humorous the way he bungles in India, and it's a lot more flashy. We can have a good laugh. But the CCP, Chinese election scandal interference, and like what is exactly the relationship with him and the Chinese? This is far more damaging and serious.
Do you think the interference with India is more like a smoke and mirror to not talk about Chinese interference?
Yeah, that's sort of what people thought at the outset. The timing of it is, and it might not have been like, exactly planned, right? You like, oh, on the Klaus Schwab chessboard where, the deep state's moving around the pieces. But things happen in life and opportunities present themselves. So with this tip with India, I think there was sort of like a two birds, one stone, where like, okay, we're going to go really hard at India now, and we're going to set the narrative that we really care about foreign interference. We're just going to accuse India of doing it, and then, punch around in some Indian diplomats because they think, oh, India's not going to smack us like China would. And there's also, again, if you deflect there and you want to if you really are dirty on China, which a lot of people think the Liberals are, just to go over, the Liberals' excuse for the Chinese interference is they can't read. They got emails from CSIS and they didn't know how to open them, which are understandable. Who knows how to open an email in the year 2024? And then when there was an investigation put to them, and it's like, there was basically a question, can you go through the emails now and open them and read them now? No, that would not be possible. That would be too much work. So the defense Liberals have is literally, we cannot read. I tend to think that might not be true. And I think Occam's razor is, you know what? There's Chinese interference. That's there. So by presenting the narrative that, oh, we're really tough on foreign interference, look at us go, we're kicking out Indian diplomats, right? Doing the things you should have done to China to someone else. It makes it look like you get a cover your tracks narrative wise, and there's always sycophants in the Toronto Star and wherever they're going to push this narrative. But yeah, I do think, although I don't think this entire thing with India was done for the sole purpose of covering up a Chinese scandal, I just think when two scandals presented themselves, there was some clever PR manipulation. You saw that from the Liberals quite clearly. They're laying the groundwork, and they were then using the things I said about India to deflect from things they did on China.
I saw a security conversation between Stephen Harper. There was Minister of Foreign Affairs from India, Ministry of Foreign Affairs from Saudi Arabia. They talked about a lot about different countries making different decisions, and from how we are moving away from the American-led world order. Where does Canada sit now, and what's in store for Canada in that future?
I mean, this is the old, multipolar world, which I don't believe in. I don't think it's a good idea. I think it's wishful thinking. I think that type of multipolar world thinking, the Obama administration bring that to the forefront. I think it's been disastrous. And I think you saw 4 years of, global stability under Trump because he reset the multipolar thing and said, no, we're Western hegemony, and American-led Western hegemony is the best way. And I think that's always Canada's strongest position, is to be, seen as sort of a diplomat for Western hegemony, where, the Americans can throw the weight around, but Canada gains a reputation for sort of being part of the free Anglosphere, having a better reputation with different countries, can negotiate sort of an intermediary between, the US and different areas of the world, whether it be Europe or the Middle East. Like, that's always been our strength, and that's where we're in the strongest position. And Harper played that position so incredibly well that Canada was in a very, very strong diplomatic position, strongest it really had ever been, where we didn't even need to sort of bow to the Americans or get dragged along with them. We sort of had enough of our reputation to sort of carry on by ourselves. And, that's all gone by the wayside when we went back to the multipolar world. Because where's Canada's role in this multipolar world? If everyone's equal and everyone's everything, then Canada stands on its own, and we're not going to back American dominance. Then, like, where do we stand? Like, when then we get pushed around by China, we get pushed around by Russia, we get pushed around by the OIC. You think the Organization of Islamic Cooperation is just going to break down because no, they're going to band together and push the things they've always been pushing. And where are we if not within our Western coalition? And the thing with the multipolar world is people often say that they don't even mean that. They don't mean everyone's equal. They just want the West to go down so they can be number one, right? They just want the West weaker so they can be positionally stronger. Like, no one outside the West who advocates for a multipolar world actually philosophically believes in multipolar worlds. They just want to be, usually they're imperialists. Like, look at Russia. Like, I mean, if China and Russia were India, then yeah, okay, let's do multipolar world, and everyone can respect and coexist. But like, part of these empirical thoughts is like, there's people who are not down for global coexistence. There's people trying to like dominate the world, and that's a harsh reality of life. And just ignoring this fact isn't going to make it go away. Just, pretending the CCP is like a harmless, oh, they just want to talk, and like, they're going to be our friends, but they're just mad at the US put sanctions on some communist 25 years ago, and if we say sorry, they're going to be like, no, we've seen that to not be true. So, and okay, yeah, I'm down with giving African nations the time of day to listen to them, but at the end of the day, you have to understand there's a reason why Uganda doesn't carry the same diplomatic weight that America does. Like, there's just a reason, and it never will. And pretending it does, and like saying, oh yes, Uganda, well, it doesn't do them any favors, because no one's going to abide by that ever. And at least in a Western dominated world, they have the ability to access free markets and trade with anyone. Like, that's part of the Western world, is like, we don't charge tariffs if Uganda and Argentina want to start trading with each other. They get to do that freely, and like, they can ship through US protected waters, like, to honor their free trade agreement, which the US doesn't get a cut of. Like, so that would not be the way of the world if the Chinese and the Russians controlled, 2/3 of it.
talk a little bit about the two campaigns. I mean, we can focus on the Conservative campaign, especially Pierre's campaign.
So in terms of the different political campaigns, I am pleasantly surprised by Pierre Poilievre because I would say every political campaign in Canada in the last 10 years, definitely on the federal level, because maybe there's some, every campaign by every political party has been designed to lose. And it's really been a competition of who's the least incompetent running for office at the moment. And Trudeau won some of those competitions by being a name. Andrew Scheer decided to ditch his personality and, do the, just talk about nothing, and just be like, I drink milk, my mom is my best friend, vote for me. And who's this appealing to? Are we really losing the Andrew Scheer's mom demographic? I thought we had that one locked solid. But no, and then Aaron O'Toole came along and he did the guys, I'm exactly like Justin Trudeau, but he started as like, I'm the true blue conservative, I'm the most conservative, I'm not Peter MacKay, but he was Peter MacKay. And then he won the nomination, and then he had absolute disdain for the grassroots. He's like, we're going to carbon tax, we're going to trans, we're going to do all the woke stuff. We're just going to do it better than Justin Trudeau. And no one in the conservative base was like, I want this. It's the first time I ever saw someone lose momentum on their political convention. Usually when you have a convention for like conservatives or liberals, you energize your base. O'Toole managed to do the opposite. You have Jagmeet Singh, which has just bankrupted the NDP. He is after the 20-year-old girl in university who took one course and now knows the world is a scary place vote demographic. He's locked that down on TikTok, but TikTok is not real life, and TikTok views do not translate to votes. This is something he should have known. So is that, and then Justin Trudeau continues to get more and more and more unpopular every time he opens his mouth. He's run his course in the GTA. I think you're seeing many different people get disillusioned with him, like cost of living, the price gouges has now hit the sort of the Uber Eats class. You could say the people who could sort of get themselves through the pandemic, like everyone's starting to feel it now, so it's time to go. And if you're part of any minority group, Jew, Hindu, Christian, who your churches are burning, the radicals harassing your synagogue, and you see the liberals appeasing all the radicals to keep them in their donor base, I think a lot of people are sort of out. So the election looks very good for the Conservatives, and it looks like Pierre Poilievre is the first conservative politician to try and win an election in the last 10 years since Stephen Harper. This is the first time I think the Conservatives are trying to win. They're doing conservative policies. They're getting into new debates. Like, not everything is perfect. Like, again, you're not going to win this whole, like, you're going to need to show ID to get internet pornography thing. Like, you're not going to be able to censor the internet. But the other good stuff is, okay, they're finally getting in on like the ridiculous gender stuff in the classroom. You can't have biological males in female prisons. You can't have, men competing against women in combat sports. All right, everyone tone down the lunacy. They're starting to sort of push into areas that more people want to see them push, where it is popular to be there, where the majority of the population is. He's showing good leadership doing this. He has good messaging on housing, cost of living, bring it down. So Poilievre is doing a very good job of, and again, the election's coming, we still have another year, but building name recognition, connecting, getting messages across, not saying anything too crazy, but still keeping momentum by, pushing the boundaries on different things, getting into the different social issues that have been tested, saying things that a lot of Canadians want to hear, taking, taking common sense as a conservative stance, getting people under the umbrella of, yes, common sense, let's just make rational decisions, no more craziness. It's a slow build, but he is building till 2025. And there's a reason why they're sometimes almost 20 points up in the polls.
And what's critical of the campaign?
There's always things you can criticize. I mean, I do think the Conservative Party is overly reliant on polling. I think they're getting to this point where they're better and react quicker to the polls. And I might sense a bit of this in Poilievre, but it's not perfect yet, where they have to realize that a lot of the polling data is built on faulty assumptions to begin with. The people who ask the questions and how questions are framed to Canadians matter a ton. So if you want to take polls, that's great, but you should be aware that if you want to poll people's attitudes on climate change, to say. The questions traditionally asked in Canadian polling, there's always a tacit implication in the questioning that the liberal policies on climate change actually do help make climate change better. It just increases cost of living, right? Whereas the conservative framing is actually these climate change policies, one, do not change the climate. Like they don't even work. They're not doing the things you say they're doing, and they're expensive, right? All the sort of polling, the most common thing in sort of polling data is there's always an implication built into the questions that the left-wing policies do what they say they're doing, right? You are getting $10 a day daycare. Do you support it? Do you support Poilievre taking away $10 a day daycare? No one's going to support that. That's such a negative question, right? But the people don't understand that you're not getting daycare for $10 a day. Like that never materialized. That was just a bunch of lefties saying a thing that sounded good and free and like will increase taxes, but can't manifest because it's not practical. So that's the big problem with polling is a lot of things you're polling are built on faulty assumptions, where as what you want to see the Conservative Party doing, and what Poilievre has capability to is get out there ahead of the polls, reframe the narrative, right? Again, if you want to go into the gender issue stuff, the media and Trudeau will frame it as, why Daniel Smith attacking healthcare for transgender kids. Everyone wants healthcare. Everyone should be allowed healthcare, right? But the framing that the right uses is parental rights, right? No one's going to be against parental rights, right? So like frame it this way and say like, okay, what we're actually against is, removing healthy sexual breast tissue or, genitals from underage people. Like you can't make decisions as a kid, no puberty blockers, no crazy surgeries for minors, right? And that's, the framing. And when it's framed that way, right? Like, are you in favor of healthcare for transgender kids? The majority of Canadians would probably say yes. However, ask the questions, do you think children should be able to get their healthy breast or genitals removed through surgical means? The majority would say no. So what polling are you getting? And you can affect people on the polls, but you have to frame the narrative. So the big test for the Conservatives is, will they be able to frame their own narrative independent from the media? And we will see that going to 2025. And this, I have more confidence in them than previous iterations, because Andrew Scheer, just once you got to be the leader, couldn't stand up to the party brass and just got pushed into this mold. O'Toole was your classic, fake blue, red Tory, we're going to Trudeau better than Trudeau. So, no one really got on with that. And Poilievre has this somewhat charismatic ability to explain things of nerdy politics. So I see that as working.
Awesome. Thank you for your time, Daniel. Appreciate that.